Bam.
Okay.
All right.
Hi, Jake
Hello.
Porter and Zach Luther here again for another mentor meeting. If you hear any distractions in the background, it's because we've got kids in the room with us, so we'll get on to them if that happens. Um, First thing we got to talk about is my instructional planning artifact reflection. So that is an assignment I've had to plan where I had to choose grade level, subject, standard, and then kind of build an assignment that way. So what I chose is sixth to eighth grade social studies, ancient Greece. Um, and the standard is to analyze the causes and consequences of the Persian Wars, including the role of Athens and its cooperation with Sparta to defend the Greek city-states. So they wanted us to come up with a little attention getter. So I thought I would do some editing and find the most PG scene of the movie 300 that I could, because I know it's not a very school appropriate movie, but I found a YouTube clip where it's the Spartans, they're there, you can see they've been fighting,
Yeah.
and then Xerxes' army fires the
Arrow.
million arrows. And I just thought that was an effective, like, this is why these two guys that don't really get along are coming together because these insurmountable odds they're faced with, right? So I thought that was an effective, like, starting point. Um,
Mhm.
so they wanted us to, or they wanted me to do, I do, we do, you do.
Sure.
So started with some guiding questions in the I do part, and those were like, why would Athens and Sparta unite? What were the long-term effects of their cooperation, and what events kind of led to them
Right.
even being in this situation in the first place? So the instructional part would be mainly just me establishing some context, talking about why Persia's there, the history behind
Yeah.
that,
Background stuff. Good.
background stuff. Yeah. As a group, I would want to, as a group, I would give them each like a topic. So split them into groups, give them a topic like the Athenian and Spartan involvement, or like battles, major battles, things like that, and kind of make it like a research project.
Right.
And like you had said yesterday, break it into roles. So have one person's researcher,
Yeah.
presenter, you know, things like that.
Mhm.
Um, for an independent part of the assignment, which is the you do, I would want them to go back to those focus questions that we established, pick one, and use the researching skills that we've developed as a class individually to answer that question. Give me your best shot at why this happened, why the focus question is. Um, Final part of this is they want to know how I'll know if the students have learned.
Yep.
And the
Good.
way that would be is if they can effectively answer the question. Because I would hope by that point that I would have taught them the necessary skills to be able to research on their own
Sure.
and gather information to have an
Mhm.
effective answer to that.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so that was the big part. Um, my the teacher that's in charge of this did mention that she wanted everybody to go down the list here
Okay.
because not everybody's been doing it. So I just want to make sure.
Cool.
We talked about the four primary domains of dispositions the first meeting, open-mindedness, self-reflection, curiosity, and all that. I don't really know what else we could talk about with that, but um,
Well, I think if you like in the lesson when you organize and you split them off into groups, and each one has their own task, I think that kind of like um, brings that like kind of creation and solving piece on their own,
mhm,
which also when they're in a group, it maybe kind of holds them to a little higher expectation
yeah,
because not only are they worried about their score, their grade, but they're also worried about making sure that the group agrees to it as well.
mhm,
Um, so there's like kind of more towards the open-mindedness
yeah.
area to it.
I like the movie scene I told you about. I feel like I'm a history nerd, so maybe that was just work for me, but I feel like that would pique my curiosity a little bit. Like,
Right,
what is this? This is
right.
cool.
That's
Like,
probably like you could probably just show that clip and like not say anything. It
yeah,
would just be like the opener or the icebreaker, so to say.
yeah.
Just get into that kind of conversation piece.
Mhm. Um, reflection and educational equity. I guess the main part of the lesson, it was talking about like differentiating instruction, kind of promoting that educational equity by providing scaffolding for kids who need it, kind of
Mhm.
getting everybody to the same level.
Right.
So
Right.
I guess you could probably do some of that with organization, depending on how you put the groups together, knowing your kids.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Maybe it depends on the class that you have and the students that you have in the class, but you might have to pick their own groups to where maybe someone that you know that might struggle
Mhm.
in the assignment, maybe they're with someone in the class that might be a good teaching role, so to say. So I think it depends on your students. And that I think the organizing the groups I think is important.
Okay. Reflect on what will be crucial for keeping your implementation plan on course and achieving your SMART goals. Uh, Currently, I'm just kind of knocking it out when I can.
Yeah.
My SMART goal was, I undershot it by a lot. I wanted my module 1 to be done like in 2 weeks, and that was not enough time. I didn't realize how
Gotcha.
much content was actually in it.
Right.
So, um, I think it'll be important. I'm going to try this next week to get quite a bit of it done so we can get some mentor meetings knocked out.
Yeah.
Because on winter break, we won't be able to do that.
Right.
So, I think that's what's important is just to try to kind of cram all I can.
Gotcha.
Reevaluate when we get back from break.
Definitely.
And 2 original discussion questions I completely blanked on coming up with these, but I guess I'll try to ad lib.
I guess I'll have a question for you.
Sure.
And maybe we can do it this way. What would your final like assessment piece be? Like I know you said they're going to answer the question,
Mhm.
but how would you actually like what would be your insight on providing how do you get that answer from them? And not from a group standpoint, from an individual standpoint.
Yeah.
And like how would you get maybe that self-reflection piece back?
Mhm.
How are you able to know that like how they were thinking, and then you can go back and kind of look at some of the feedback. What would be like probably you think the best way to do that?
Well, I mean, I guess there is an answer to the question, right? So I guess it'd be comparing that, the information that we know is true. Like
Sure.
these are the consequences of this,
Right.
and seeing what they put and how they kind of comprehended
Mhm.
how those things relate.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I need to do a little bit more work on this assignment before I actually gave it to a group of kids.
Right.
But
I think probably like finding a way to make it task oriented to
Mhm.
where you can pick apart like okay, I know during this time they were working on this phase.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of see like okay, well that they understood that part.
Mhm.
So it doesn't get like lost in
It chunked it
translation.
a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
So it's not like you throw everything at them and be like, hey, get it done.
Right.
Right. It's like, okay, here was task 1 by this part.
Yeah.
And then you can see like, oh, this task was better than this
Mhm.
task.
I had kind of workshopped the idea when I was creating the project of having them work on like individual battles, but I wasn't sure if that was gonna get them to the end goal. But maybe
Yeah.
I broke it into shorter parts because that's how the assignment is chunked, but
Yeah.
in a real classroom, maybe extend that out a little bit longer.
Yeah. You kind of got a feel for like your class and exactly.
Mhm.
Very nice.
Okay. I think we're good.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right.